Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations, and you're with Simon today. So today's video, we're going to be looking at the new moon in Virgo, and this is for the 6th or 7th of September 2021, depending on where you are in the world. Here in Europe, super early in the morning. So this video has got quite a lot of content in it. I'm going to try and break it down as best as possible. A lot of themes and sub topics, if you want to put it that way. And if you look in the actual sort of video bar itself, I've broken it up into chapters, so you can go and check them out. But I was thinking about this new moon and the kind of pattern that we're experiencing at the moment, and I was thinking that, you know, if I had the full amount of time to share with you what it is that this energy, like what the astrology is representing at the moment, I think it would be like a 3-hour video. But that's not going to be the case. I'm going to break it down into small bite-sized chunks. But from my point of view, it's just, there's so much in these current alignments that trigger, you know, thousands of years of psychological and emotional and history that comes along with what the actual experience has been like for us as human beings. So very abstract, but you'll see when I go through this actual video itself what it is that I'm talking about. So the first thing that I think I want to put across is that the new moon message here from between myself and Jen and what we feel has a lot to do with being able to recognize in the present moment whether you are bringing the past into your future. Okay, so it's this capacity to be able to be really present in your space, in your moment, and being able to ask yourself, am I bringing the patterns of my trauma? Am I bringing the fear? Am I bringing things that have in the past, belief systems primarily, am I bringing them to the present moment, and then I'm molding and shaping my reality moving forward based on these deeper psychological conditions, right, or conditioning factors, coping mechanisms, and such. So the way that we see this new moon is the capacity to begin to look at what we can, what we bring with us to each moment, and how that shapes our future. Okay, and of course, individually for us, that we have our own personal path that we're on, and you know, as we're kind of communicating right now about these new moon and full moons, I'm always taking into consideration, and I'll keep reminding us throughout the eclipse season, that, you know, the eclipses were on the south node and on the north node. So you've got Gemini solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, and you know that holding pattern for the last, well, for the 6 months that we're in it right now, has a lot to do with really observing what types of deeply held beliefs that we carry about our world, and how that shapes our perception of reality, influences what we see, right? How does the framework for what we've experienced influence and justify our behavior and our perceptions of reality? So this new moon, for me at least, and at least the new moon in Virgo and the full moon in Pisces, speaks volumes to the purification. And if I want to put it in a different way, imagine that you've got like a water filter, and you put water into the top of the water filter. The Virgo Pisces axis would be the way in which the filtering agent within the water filter itself will purify the water, get rid of all of the heavy metals, etc. And then what you get on the other side is clean water. So this is kind of filtering out deep psychological and emotional complexes that we bring forth to our reality, and they drive us, essentially. So really deep dive into this process. So I think there's incredibly strong parallels between, of course, this new moon that's in Virgo, as you know, and the full moon that's going to happen in Pisces. And for those of you that are astute in astrology, you'll know that Virgo and Pisces naturally square Sagittarius and Gemini. So of course, we're going to have some tension on this new and full moon that will bring about the need to confront and look at deeper emotional patterns of ideals or beliefs that, or coping mechanisms that we put in place, and they drive us to believe what we believe, essentially. Okay, so that's the framework. That's what we see here, and just keep on looking at my notes over here just to kind of check in with what it is I want to share. So with that being said, what I want to do is jump onto the chart, and we'll look at the chart. I'll show you all of the configurations and how it's broken down, and then afterwards we'll have like a dialogue and intuitive conversation. Okay. As everybody can see, new moon in Virgo, and 7th of September here in Europe, at least, super early in the morning. All right. So the first thing you can see, I've put on extra little pieces of information over here, so everybody can have a look at, if you're new to astrology, that's what a conjunction looks like, 0 degrees. And you can also see 180 degrees is an opposition, trine, all of those little symbols there. So you can check that out alongside as we're looking at the chart itself. Okay. And then, you can also see moon, sun in Virgo, and so on. Okay. So let's start off with the grand trine that takes place between Pluto sitting at 24 degrees of Capricorn, and it's making a trine aspect to Uranus. You can see that there. It's an exact 10-degree orb, right? So there it is. There's the trine. And then you can also see the 24, the 14, and then the 14 over here. You can see it's a very loose trine that's taking place there. But then you can also see Mars in Virgo trining Pluto. So this whole entire stellium of planets sitting here in Virgo, connecting to Uranus, connecting to Pluto. So the first thing that I want to show you is that these are inner planets. So this is very personal, the way that it changes us and affects us. And these planets are almost, they are our unconscious. So these are deeply ingrained impressions and patterns in our, I don't know how to describe this in a way without becoming too abstract, but think of it as your deep psychological and emotional conditioning. Okay. So this is personal, and then these planets are outer. So we're talking about something that is part of our culture, and that is part of our deep memory that we hold about our life. Okay, so you can see here immediately that this Earth trine over here speaks to the relationship between our immediate sense of identity and how we understand ourselves in the day, and what drives us at a deeper unconscious level. Okay. Now, this Earth trine, the way I see it, is it has two kind of expressions. One of them will be experienced as a frustration and a limitation, feeling blocked. It's kind of like a crisis. You want to move forward with things, but you feel that there's too many restrictions or there's too many boundaries in place, and it's really frustrating, right? You feel frustrated. You feel like you can't move forward. You feel stuck in your ways. And on a collective level, you can see how this energy over here speaks a lot to the current way in which the world is dealing with the exposure of corruption in governmental structures, and how it's being exposed, and it's developing a deep faith crisis within the collective, being able to trust people of authority or in authority. And on the other side of that, it also brings people's desire to want to align with those authority structures because of a belief that they are supportive. There's both sides to this. So frustration, limitation, feeling blocked. Okay. The other side of this trine, and this is what I want to advocate for us today, is the ability to be able to use this energy to anchor in and then be of service to values that you have internalized within yourself. Okay, so what I mean by this, I mean that right now, this Earth trine reflects our ability to transform our sense of values, our ability to recognize what we hold true, what we think is essential in our lives, what we want to value, and how do we go about being of service to that. And that creates a direction, right? It creates definition. So right now, this Uranian energy is kind of creating these patterns of instability within our emotional reality. And it is forcing us to check in with and ask, what is it that truly matters to me? What is really important to me? How do I wish to define my life direction? Okay. So I would say a really good exercise that everybody could do with this Earth trine is to ask themselves, make a list of the things that you consider to be valuable to you, right? Valuable to you. And what do you consider those values to represent or mean for you? Okay. So making a list of things that you value in your life and why, like, what is it about those values that brings you into a deeper state of honesty with yourself and honesty within the way that you live and an authenticity. Okay. So once you've done that list, then you ask yourself, well, how do I live in accordance with that list? How do I be of service to it? Virgo. How do I allow myself to every single day develop a routine or a pattern that can allow me to be of service to these values, so that I can then develop a sense of direction, Capricorn, and choices, Capricorn, that serve these values. Okay, so that's what this Earth trine can bring to us at this point in time: a deep restructuring and a deep grounding of and acknowledging of what values and what essential needs do you have in your life that you want to live by. Okay, so that energy is very strong at the moment with this Earth trine, and it's very much supporting the idea of being able to be in flow with things. Being in flow is a Virgo Pisces sort of archetypal structure. Being in flow, like the river flows down in sort of the earth. Think of the earth as the earth trines, and think of the water with this Neptune over here, right? We're flowing in our life, or are we experiencing stagnation or experiencing being blocked? And what you will find actually with this Earth trine is it's forcing, that's why I said it will feel like frustration and blocking. It will force you to confront the things in your life that don't actually bring you any meaning. And as you pivot and adjust according to what it is that no longer works for you, you'll find yourself being able to open up and be exposed to new patterns of direction in your life. Okay, so that's that. Let's have a look at the Mars-Jupiter quincunx that's taking place. In fact, actually, just before I do that, let me show you that the Saturn that's in Aquarius, trining the North Node here in Gemini. You can see they're both air signs. And then if you look as well, the North Node ruler is the planet that's associated with Gemini. It's Mercury. Look here, 10 degrees. Look, there's another aspect as well. So 10 degrees Mercury, 7 degrees of Saturn, and 5 degrees of Gemini. They're air energies. And again, you can see here that the North Node ruler they're trining not only the North Node, but Saturn is also trining the North Node over there. So what that means is we can experience quite profound abilities in allowing our ideas, allowing our expressions of thoughts to feel gelling with people, right? We can find common ground with people, or we can actually find with this trine as well, separation. So what's very clear in the collective at the moment is this division that's taking place where people are saying, I no longer resonate with you. And that's where that trine is also working, like really clearing out and acknowledging where we find stuckness or no longer we have resonance with people. So that energy, that trining over there, is facilitating a breaking away. And that breaking away is being driven by a deeper unconscious reshaping of values within people. And that is also, on one level, leading to the splitting apart of people once having value in talking to certain people and no longer anymore. And I'll get into that a bit later as to how I see that can actually be a really bad thing if coming from fear. All right. Okay. So this is also by the way, and I'll talk about it here, a big part of this energy right now is to actually purify and objectify deep psychological and emotional patterns of where you feel persecuted by life, like you're still stuck in grief. And so you're still kind of feeling that the world is doing things to you. And one of the ways that you can ask yourself, where can I still be feeling like I'm stuck in grief, or I feel that the world is dangerous place. You can just listen to your language, right? Listen to the types of words that you use to describe reality. If you're sort of pointing fingers at things and labeling things and saying they did that to me, or this is being done, ask yourself, where in the relation between your subjective self and the objective world is there a belief that you have, or held belief that still keeps you in this feeling of Virgo or Pisces, depending on which side of it is? Do you feel that you are overwhelmed by something? You're powerless in this situation, and you need to surrender, right? So that surrender kind of attitude, fall down. It's hopeless. It's meaningless. Or the Virgo part of it, which is I'm in a constant crisis and I deserve the suffering, right? It can inner critic and outer critic behaviorisms. Outer critic meaning protecting yourself from abandonment trauma. And so you protect yourself by looking at everything outside of yourself and saying, that's dangerous, it's bad, never do that. And when we're in that inner critic phase, we internalize our own shame, and then we believe that we're worthless and we deserve this and it should happen to us, etc. So I remember right in the beginning of this video, I said there's lots of themes to talk about. Well, those are the two main themes that are a very big part of this energy at the moment. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna move on to the Sun, to the Mars Jupiter aspect. So there's Jupiter in Aquarius retrograde, as you can see, and Mars is sitting 24 degrees. That's an exact inconjunct. Okay. So for those of you that don't know what I mean, this is an inconjunct or a quincunx. I highlighted over there, big like neon signs. And what this represents, what we're talking about here when we're talking about an inconjunct, is a pattern of energy where both planets don't really see each other. Okay. All right. And in most common astrology charts where somebody has an inconjunct, you'll find, you have at some point gone, oh, what does that mean? And you've, searched the internet, you've tried to figure out what it is. It's a very, it's a aspect that I say is not difficult to understand, but it can be very confusing if you don't know what you're looking for. So an inconjunct or a quincunx there's two patterns to it, right? This quincunx is actually a Scorpio inconjunct. There's two of them. Like I said, one represents itself through a Virgo expression. It creates a paralysis and an internalized need to look at where you can improve yourself. And then there's the Scorpio one. And the Scorpio one is more of a social limitation. So when you see this quincunx between Mars and Jupiter, what's actually happening with this inconjunct, it's forcing us to, through confrontations outside of ourselves, right? Through confrontations that are outside of ourselves, i.e. social experiences. Notice the Libra planets here, and then in particular the Venus square the Pluto. Okay, Venus being relations and relatability, Libra being how we relate in social ways. So the square to Pluto, how they are becoming intensified, and we have been experiencing quite a lot of intense interpersonal relation dynamics and patterns. Well, this Mars in conjunct Jupiter, what it's going to do is it's going to reveal the dynamic tension between where you have beliefs within yourself that you will bring to the table that will cause a certain inability to see where the crisis is internal within yourself. So you may project onto another person. You may, in a classic case, which is what I want to bring to the table here, is you may take certain beliefs or ideas and place it onto the other person, but really it's internal in you, and what you see is what you believe, as opposed to what is actually there in reality. So the Virgo part is creating that kind of disillusionment with the opposition to Neptune. There's Mars in opposition to Neptune. So it creates that kind of disillusionment, and what happens is it forces us in on ourselves. And we can do one or two things here. We can not see it and feel incredibly angry and frustrated at the disbelief that another person can do this to us. or we could be invited for self-reflection to observe what is it that I'm bringing to the conversation that could be fill in the blanks, right? What deeply held beliefs that I hold that could be preventing this conversation from a deeper understanding or a deeper truth, all right? So what I would say here is to check in with what it is that you are sharing and believing, and really just do a deep internal self-reflection. And what you will find with this in conjunct is it will cause certain adjustments within your emotional and psychological awareness, and it will bring you into a lot of clarity around what needs to be empowered in you. Okay, bringing it back to yourself. How can you empower yourself? Yeah. So we're talking about with healing, the theme about healing our individual self and being able to come from a deeper state of self-understanding. Okay. So the other inconjunct that's taking place is between Chiron and this energy here, right? Sun, Moon, and then Chiron and Aries. Now, Chiron and Aries is actually ruled by Mars. So there is these two planets, as in Chiron quincunxing Jupiter and Chiron opposing Neptune, they are going to significantly impact the way that this Chiron shows up. Okay, because Chiron is ruled by, or Mars is ruling Chiron. So they're interlinked. They're not separate. And so I've given you one aspect of it. Now here's the other aspect. So when Chiron quincunxes the moon or is in aspect to the moon, what happens is there's a relationship between emotionally identifying the wound within yourself, right? So Moon Chiron aspects will always feel. So if you have this in your chart, you will always feel very, very sensitive to this ongoing psychological and emotional wound that is represented by your Chiron. So here, what you see in the collective at the moment is this tension between the freedom to have a choice, okay, and how difficult it is for us to see that every single person is wanting a freedom for choice, and yet because it looks so diverse, we are kind of separated in our unified desire for choice, right? We all want a choice. So one person will say, I want the choice to be able to say, I don't know, do something political that's been politicized, unfortunately, but like say take a vaccine. And another person will say that my choice to not choose that. But is a dynamic tension that sits between people over there, between us at the moment. And that Chiron in Aries is really trying to help us figure out how can we collaborate in ways where we honor this sense for autonomy and independence, and yet at the same time still interface with us as a collective. And so that's where this Moon Chiron as in conjunct is occurring here. And so that's the first part, right? So we're kind of deeply psychologically and emotionally aware of this wound of this agency. I want to take action. I want to free myself. I want to change. I want to liberate myself, right? And then the aspect to the sun, when Chiron's an aspect to the sun, more so with the inconjunct, is that we need to be able to transmute the pain into something that has meaning. So what you have here between this Moon Sun conjunction and the Chiron is, how do we translate our pain and suffering of the past into something that it has meaning, okay? And this ties back in with the core message of the chart, which was, as we're moving through this movement in Virgo, how do we take the experiences that we've had in the past that have shaped us and that we have been wounded by or have been hurt by, and transmute that pain, go through that suffering, and come out on the other side and take the wisdom from that experience and then actualize it, right? So actualizing your purpose through what awoke you in your suffering and your pain. So that's what that kind of inconjunct's really reflecting here, is the capacity for us to be able to, with Mars there, is that we'll be triggered into these deeper patterns of emotional pain. We'll become very aware of it. And then the gift here is to transmute that pain into something that actually, comes out and has meaning, right? How can we make meaning out of our pain from the past? And we all carry with ourselves an emotional story. and that emotional story has got sadness and suffering in it. How can we take this new moon energy and use the potential to free ourselves from the beliefs that shape us based on that pain, and then transmute it into something that actually gives us a deeper meaning? And then that actually aligns us with this idea of service, right, between this Virgo Pisces axis here. So that's pretty cool in that sense. The Mars opposed Neptune here again, what you will see in the collective, and as well as what can be healed with us deeply, is the psychology of the persecution. Persecution and the perpetrator is deeply embedded within this Virgo Pisces archetype, because it's the perpetrator needs to abuse somebody. The persecution is somebody that feels that they need to be persecuted, right? With this Virgo archetype at a deep unconscious level, it's an underlying sense of I don't deserve to live, or I deserve the suffering, I deserve this pain, and I can attract these types of energies into my life where I justify my own lack of self-worth or shame. These types of things are really, you'll see them in the collective right now, and it will be really big as a tremendous amount of drama will show up for it over here. People will feel that they are being persecuted, or that's people being perpetrated, and it's going to be difficult to actually navigate because it is such a deeply sensitive and complex wound within the collective. Okay, so ask yourself, check in with yourself, where am I potentially kind of justifying my actions through some form of belief? Where could I potentially be feeling that I subconsciously need to be abused in some way, or where my self-worth is needing to be improved? That would be kind of the message here with that. And then Venus squaring Pluto, as you can see here, this is what is called a crisis in consciousness, right? Consciousness square. And what the crisis in consciousness square says is we're trying to break out of patterns of behavior that are representative of the past, and the way that we'll feel this is a tension between what is expected of us versus what we want to do and individuate and jump out of. So this, again, I think this aspect over here speaks volumes to the need for us to really liberate from beliefs and ideas and values and ways of relating to other people and seeing other people. And this, what we're breaking out of, is trying to liberate ourselves, like I said, from how we feel trapped by our beliefs. I think I'm just going to put it like that. I'm trying to find different ways of expressing it, but I think that's what it is. This is a need to go out on your own, to break free, to recognize that right now you'll be sensitive to things that no longer value anymore, and you've got to realize that Pluto wants to eliminate that. So this could come down to a lot of experiences where you say, I can't do this anymore, and you kind of just put a boundary in place, right? You put boundaries in place here, and that's just how it is going to go forward. Okay. All right. So I'm going to switch back to the screen, and we'll do a summary, and that will be the end of it. Okay. So quite a lot of things to process in that new moon chart over there. And of course, this entire new moon is going to sort of bloom throughout the next month, and we'll get the opportunity to actually see these archetypes flourish into our consciousness over the next month. So obviously come back to this video, 10 days into this new moon cycle, when the opposition takes place, of course, and you'll find how these patterns are emerging. And what you want to do is you want to, for the next month, be conscious and mindful of what you are bringing into the moment that has been shaped by the past. And the underlying psychology here is to ask yourself, what do I fear? How is fear driving me, right? How am I making choices in my life where I fear things? And to really, crack into the structure of how fear is representing itself in your life. There's good fear in the sense that it prevents you from doing things that you may not, comfortable with. And then there's just fear of the unknown, because you can't cross that threshold, and it actually is good for you to go through the fear. It's good for you to stop living your life in the abstract future, or that fear is driving your choices to do the things that you want to do. So that's the kind of core message here that I want you guys to take away from this next new moon cycle. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to talk about drawing parallels between fear-based programming and what's been really interesting to me over the last sort of like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I've been processing a lot at the moment in the human experience, the nature of different types of genocides that have been taking place. And one thing that's been incredibly profound universally throughout all of these types of events that have happened in the 20th century has been that there's an underlying division that takes place with where people justify their actions through the moral kind of code, right? And it also, where we also choose through our fear to divide ourselves, because what we are afraid of is whatever the narrative is. Okay, so just thinking about like Rwanda, for instance, there are two tribes that were driven deeply by this fear that the other person was superior, or that there was a sense that the other person was less of, and it drove them to act in ways where people that they would live with in common ways and see people as normal, now all of a sudden saw them in a light that was not okay, even though nothing had changed other than the own psychological kind of overlay. And I think that this is an important thing for us to consider right now with these current planetary alignments of Gemini and Sagittarius, right? Our beliefs, the way that we use language, the way that we define things, and how that can easily justify actions and behaviors in ways that normally we would not actually consider to be healthy at all. So just over the next kind of months, just observe where you may have like a coping mechanism or a belief structure, an ideal or some sort that stops you from seeing something deeper because of the fear that is maybe driven behind that, right? We know that the corporate media and the media itself likes to propagate a tremendous amount of this energy. You can think of 9/11, you can think of Afghanistan at this point in time. It's not a coincidence that you're having kind of this closing cycle take place. And when it originally started in the year 2000s, the planetary alignments are very similar. And what was the motive, right? The motive was, or an agenda or a belief system or a myth that people needed to believe in was justified, right? The belief justifies the action. And it's so easy to do that right now. So please check in with your own perspectives and your own points of views and ask yourself a really deep and honest question. Where may I be seeing something and justifying something based on a moral ideal or a truth? Okay. With that being said, thanks very much everybody for listening to this video. You would have seen in the beginning of this video as well as the end of this video, there's a subscribe button. Of course, I want to let everybody know that this channel exists. So, if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button. That'd be awesome. Of course, always share the material with people that you feel are going to find value in this as well. I always love to see your comments in the video too, and interact with them. And yeah, happy new moon, everybody. Have an amazing time, and I'll speak to you very soon. Bye.